Today I am replacing the standard Interceptor mirrors with a set of aftermarket mirrors by an Australian company called Purpose Built Moto. I'm going to be fitting their Scrambler mirror. If it wasn't for this incident here that you can see, I wouldn't be replacing the mirrors. I think that the standard mirrors on the Interceptor are fine, they're totally acceptable. Visibility is good, they suit the bike. The only thing is they're a little bit cheap looking, a bit plasticky, but apart from that they're a decent mirror. What happened with my mirror was embarrassing to say the least. I had been out on a ride, pushing the bike back into the garage. The bike was facing the other way, so this handlebar was up against the wall, and I must have been tired off the ride, or I don't know what's gone on. I've gone to put it on the centre stand, and I've slipped, and I've basically pushed the bike straight against the wall. I've damaged the panel on the wall, which is nothing, and obviously damaged the mirror. I'm lucky really, if it weren't for the wall, I'd be pricing up a new tank, exhaust, maybe an engine case, who knows. Let me know in the comment section if you've ever dropped your pride and joy. It is not a nice feeling, and I'll tell you something, these bikes, once they go over the balance point, these Interceptors are quite heavy. I think, are they over 200 kilograms? I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, let's get these mirrors unboxed. Let's see what we're working with. The mirrors arrived well packaged, and if you stick around until the end of the video, I'll tell you how long they took to come from Australia and how much they cost me. In the box you get a spacer, an M6 bolt and two M6 nuts, and obviously the mirror itself. Oh, and some instructions, but you won't be needing these if you follow this guide. I went for the mirrors in anodised black. You can also get these in a polished steel finish for that timeless classic look. By loosening this Allen key bolt, you can swivel the head of the mirror, which allows you to fit it on either the left or the right hand side of the motorcycle. Let's remove what's left of these old mirrors. For this, you're going to need a 14mm spanner. Lift up the rubber cover to gain access to the 14mm locking nut. On this brake lever side, to loosen the bolt, you need to turn it in a clockwise direction. And it's the same clockwise direction to get the mirror stem off. Repeat the process on the clutch side, but this time to loosen the nut, you're going to want to turn it in an anti-clockwise direction. And obviously the same goes for the mirror stem, anti-clockwise. These are handlebar mirror blanking plugs. I got mine off the Hitchcock's website. To fit these, you need a 5mm Allen key. I've added a smear of multi-purpose grease on mine. You don't have to, that's entirely up to you. Just nip them up. Repeat the process on the opposite side. So you might be thinking to yourself, why has he just blanked up the holes for where our new mirrors are going? So our new mirrors, they actually use the holes provided on the bike for the clutch and the brake lever. Purpose Built Moto do supply you with a bolt. It's a 70mm stainless steel bolt. You will have to cut that down because it's too big. If you don't want to do any cutting down, I've figured out that you need a 50mm bolt on this side and a 60mm bolt on this side. M6 bolts. The only thing is you're going to have to drill the clutch side, because from the factory Royal Enfield I've put a 5mm bolt in. So obviously we're fitting a 6mm, so yeah, you're going to have to drill it through 6mm. This side's okay, it's already got a 6mm bolt in it. So that's the next stage now. Let's crack on. So as I've just mentioned then, you're going to need a 60mm M6 bolt for the clutch side and a 50mm M6 bolt for the brake side. I'm using black buttonhead bolts, but it's entirely up to you what bolts you want to use. You also need 4 M6 plain nuts, 2 M6 washers and 2 spring washers. I'm going to start on the brake side. Remove the 10mm nut underneath the brake lever. Use a flathead screwdriver to get the bolt out. I use my cordless to speed the process up a bit. So here's the bolt I've just removed, and here is the spacer provided by Purpose Built Moto. It's an exact fit, so I will definitely be fitting this. If I don't fit this, what will happen is when I put the new bolt in, you'll get a lot of slack here. This will be moving backwards and forwards, so that is going to take up that slack. Here I decided to remove the brake lever just to add a bit more grease onto that pivoting area. I'm glad I did because the grease supply from the factory had already started to dry up. I also added some to the lever itself. I've added a washer onto my new M6 50mm bolt, and I've also added some thread lock just to the section where it's going to tighten up to the bottom of the lever pivoting area. Once you've definitely started the thread off by hand, you can then use your cordless or your impact driver. Don't tighten the bolt up all the way just yet. Add some grease to your spacer before you fit it. Add some to the inside of the spacer too. Slide the spacer over the bolt. If it doesn't go down all the way, use a screwdriver to push it down. Make sure it's flush. To help with the install, you can wiggle the lever backwards and forwards. You can now tighten the bolt up. I do this by hand, not by using the impact driver. Clean up any excess grease. Add a small amount of thread lock for our M6 nut. The thread lock's probably more than enough to prevent the nut from loosening, but I've also just added a spring washer before I added the nut. Get the M6 nut nice and tight. On the clutch side, you have an 8mm nut underneath and a 10mm bolt on the top. I'm taking the clutch lever off to give us more room for drilling. I think the easiest way to do this is to disconnect the cable from the clutch release arm. To do this, I'm using an 8mm socket and a 1/4 drive ratchet and a 10mm spanner. Disconnecting the cable from this point also saves me having to adjust the clutch lever back up if I was to disconnect it at the lever. The lever can now be moved out of the way. With the lever removed, you can now drill your 6mm hole. Keep your drill as straight as you can and take your time. I like to drill upwards so all the swarf hits the floor. If you do end up with a little bit of swarf in that area, make sure you remove it. Doing exactly what I did on the other side, I'm adding a bit of multi-purpose grease onto them pivoting areas and also onto the lever. You can now reattach the cable and refit the lever. Refit the bolt and the nut for the clutch release arm. I've also added a bit of thread lock onto this. It did already have some on it, but I've added some more. I've come across a slight issue now. This is the bolt that we've took out of the clutch lever, and this is the spacer provided, and as you can see we have a size difference. In the garage I've got lying around some aluminium tubing. I will write in the description section the size of it, but it is exactly the same size as the spacer in diameter and also perfect for the 6mm bolt. So what we'll be doing now is cutting a section of this off to that measurement and we'll use that. I cut the pipe using a pipe cutter. You can pick these up from your local hardware store. They cost about £5 or £6. Fit your M6 bolt with the washer on it. I've also applied some grease onto this. And then slide in your spacer with some grease also on that, just like we did on the other side. Fit your spring washer and also some thread lock. You've probably guessed what comes next, the plain nut. With a 4mm Allen key and a 10mm spanner, you can now tighten up your nut and bolt. Don't over tighten this. If you do, your clutch lever won't operate properly. Test it to make sure the clutch lever moves freely. This isn't a great angle, so I'll explain to you what I'm doing. I'm just trimming down the rubber that came on the original mirror stems. I'm going to reuse this to cover up the locking nuts on the new mirrors. I'll show you in more detail in just a second. Moving back onto the brake lever side now, I'm applying some thread lock and I'm also applying that second plain nut. As you might have noticed then, I've only applied the thread lock to the bottom section of the bolt. This nut I'm fitting is going to be the locking nut for the mirror stem. Wind the nut all the way to the bottom. You can now spin on the new mirror. Fit the mirror roughly where you want it to be and then wind back that second nut we've just put on in an anti-clockwise direction until the mirror is secure. Just nip this up for now with your 10mm spanner. Obviously, repeat that exact same process on the clutch side. This is what I was trimming up on the bench before. This has come off the original mirror stem. This is completely optional, you don't have to fit this, but in my opinion, this is going to finish the job off and give it that factory look. Jump on the bike, get the mirrors set up exactly how you like them to be before you go locking anything up. Considering the new mirror size is only 72mm, I'm still really impressed with the visibility to the back of the motorcycle. Once you're happy with the mirror positioning and you've locked up that second nut to the mirror stem, you can slide these covers down if you fitted them. I personally think this looks better than seeing the locking nuts on display. What do you think? Last but not least, just double check you've tightened up the Allen key bolts on the end of the mirror stems. All that's left now is to admire your new mirrors. As I promised at the start of the video, I'm now going to tell you what I paid for the mirrors. So I paid £78 for these mirrors, delivered to my door using their express service. They came to me within 4 days. You might remember me saying that there was nothing wrong with the factory mirrors on the Interceptor, so you're probably thinking, why didn't you just fit another one? But where's the fun in that? It is nice to modify your bike and make it unique to you and a bit different from the rest. I went with these mirrors because I've not seen many Interceptors over here in the UK with these on. Everyone seems to go for the bar end mirrors. What's pretty cool about these mirrors is that you've got 3 mounting options for them. You can mount them the way I've mounted them, you can mount them underneath, and you can also buy the bar end kit and fit them on the end of your handlebars. Since fitting these mirrors, it's definitely made me want to mod the bike further in the future. I hope you've enjoyed the video, ride safe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.